I'm just going to be direct and quick. I am 35. Have two sisters that I'm close with. I also have a niece, Leah. Leah's 16, and after my ex-wife decided to split up and divorce due to infertility problems that lasted for 5 years, I started a college fund for Leah to help her go to her chosen college. That was in 2019. Now I visit my mother's home, where my sister and Leah are living, every week to spend the weekend together. This past weekend I was asleep upstairs while my mother, my sister and Leah were in the kitchen. I came downstairs to grab a glass of water and heard my sister talking about my ex-wife expecting a baby with her new husband. This struck a nerve and I kind of froze from shock. I then heard Leah react to the news repeatedly saying, "I told you so, I told you so," then explained she's always thought that I was the one with a problem for not being able to have a baby with my ex, but that I was too afraid to admit due to fragile masculinity. I could not believe what she said, but what made it worse is her following statement about how my ex was smart to get a divorce before it was too late. I went upstairs and into the room and shut the door and stayed there for hours. Mom and sister saw me about to leave and insisted to know what the problem was. I didn't want to argue, but I told them that I heard what Leah said about me. Leah stopped eating and got quiet. My sister tried to play dumb, but I told her I heard their entire conversation about my ex-wife and her pregnancy news. My sister tried to backpedal, saying Leah is just a kid who doesn't know much about this stuff and was just spouting nonsense. I told them I don't want to talk about it and they refused to let me leave, but I left eventually. I later sent my sister a text telling her about how hurt and devastated I was because of what Leah said, and told her I will no longer be responsible for funding her education. My sister kept trying to call, then texted saying Leah didn't mean what she said and offered to make her apologize, but I didn't feel comfortable being in the same room with someone who blamed me for something that was out of my control and something that literally turned my life upside down. My mother tried to get me to come over so we could talk, saying Leah doesn't deserve me turning my back on her like that. So this went off unexpectedly. I read a lot of insightful comments but couldn't keep up. I'm sorry. I haven't seen my sister nor Leah after what happened, but they are still trying to contact me, which means there's still a room for a discussion, and so I've decided to go see them tomorrow, sit down together and have a long conversation. But now I admit I'm not the type of person that feels comfortable talking about what's bothering me, especially when it comes to sensitive topics, but like some of you have said, this is my family, my niece and her future. I admit that I was mad when I told my sister about the college fund cancellation. I love Leah so much and see her as my own daughter. Unfortunately, her dad, my Bill, is deceased, and so I understand losing a parent at a young age and relate to the kind of hurt she carries inside. Lost my father in an accident when I was 11, and I think that sitting down and talking things out is the best option before I make any decision. Hopefully this will get resolved soon, and I'm so sorry for the long ETA, but I just wanted to let you guys know. I might update on what happens after we talk, so we'll see how it goes. Thank you so much for bearing with me. Also, one more thing to clarify. Both my ex-wife and I were having these fertility issues, both sides, but since my ex-wife got pregnant soon after her new marriage, then my family thought that I was the problem, originally. It is what it is, and I'm learning to not words get in my head so easily. I'm not mad at anyone. I'm just trying to move on with my life like anybody else. They let her sit there and have an adult conversation, but want to call her a child when there are consequences of that conversation. You're not responsible for paying for her education. And you're only 35. It's possible that you can find someone else and have your own child. So save that money for your own potential future child. And your sister has a lot of nerve. If the girl doesn't want to take it upon herself to apologize, a forced apology from her is not going to mean a damn thing. I'm childless and my brother has 2 daughters, and I like to send them stuff and contribute to their college funds, but it's only because I choose to. I am not obligated to. They have 2 parents with jobs who can help contribute to their education and other extracurriculars. Being the childless aunt, uncle does not mean we are a bank. The sister saying, "I'll make her apologize," rubbed me the wrong way as well. Not, she wants to apologize, or, she's trying to reach out to you herself to make this right, but instead, "I'll make her apologize." Asinine. NTA, but these are big statements from a 16-year-old, and it is very likely she picked up on all these statements through someone older in the family who has likely been gossiping about you for a while, either your sister, mother, or an aunt, or even the ex-wife. They didn't say anything to correct her when she said it, so they have probably said, think the same on other occasions. NTA. JFC at the other judgments. This man's life was literally upended by his divorce. You are seemingly forgetting that his own sister didn't defend him or stop the daughter from saying such awful shit. I bet you this was not the first time they've snarked about Op behind his back. It's just the first time he's caught them. It's not fragile masculinity to be hurt by infertility. This is pain no one understands until you happen to experience it. If it were a woman, everyone would be falling head over ass to placate her. But to have family members discuss it so callously behind your back only to then hold their hand out for cash with a grin? Appalling. To Op. I'm so sorry. However, stand by your decision and don't give in. Use that money and treat yourself to therapy. Yeah, the whole bit on, thank goodness she was smart enough to leave, is what gets me the most. That was nothing but mean. She wasn't just putting her foot in her mouth. That was cruel. NTA. Your niece knew exactly what she was saying. Also, her mother didn't correct her or tell her what she was saying was rude in the moment. Probably because the three of them definitely share the same opinion. Op is being used by his family, who disgustingly have more loyalty to his ex-wife than him. NTA. Why hasn't her parents got a college fund going for her? You are not responsible to pay for any kid that isn't yours. If I was you, I would take a lovely long vacation on the money that you saved. In Canada, so school is slightly cheaper here, but my parents couldn't save money for school. They didn't have a generous benefactor, either. I busted my ass for 3 years to save for my paralegal certification. My brother paid for his electrician's ticket on his own dime. My sister took out loans for her vet assistant program. My parents helped in other ways. Let us live at home for no or cheap rent. Stuff like that, but we were broke AF. I would normally err on the side of patience with a 16-year-old because they're idiots, but the "I told you so" stuff does make it sound very like she's been beating this horse for a while. Which is weird and frankly suggests it's really coming from your mom and or sister, because most under 16s don't hyper-focus on their uncle's sperm count. If I were you, I'd tell your mom and sister you want to understand why she said that. You should also consider reinstating the fund in due course, given a sufficient apology from both Leah and your sister, who's obviously been gossiping about this for ages. I told you so, equals we have often discussed this before. It also doesn't sound like the mom pushed back in any way. The teenager was being an idiot and said something cruel. Why didn't her mom immediately call her out? It seems like she just sat there in agreement. That's the worst part for me. Info. Did you not get tested after 5 years to see if it was sperm-related? I mean, was your ex going through a bombardment of tests and infertility treatments that could have been avoided had you been tested? This is important. So many couples who struggle through infertility only get the woman tested, which is wrong. Men can be infertile as well, and to continuously put the blame on women isn't okay, and it needs to stop. Op needs to answer these questions. NTA. Your niece's comment is very telling about how she feels about you. Why should you have to fund her education knowing she has little to no respect? She is not entitled to it. It was a kindness on your part. Even though she is young, that level of disrespect is pretty deep. Let her take out loans, or let her parents pay. Let's be real, if there wasn't money involved, OP's fam would have turned around with a, well, it's the truth, deal with it, attitude. The only reason they are apologizing is because they need the free ride. NTA. Go buy yourself something fun with the money and send a pic of it to your fam with, I didn't mean to spend it, I'm just a divorcee. Fuck them. Too many open questions. How come she said that? Did you believe it was your ex who was infertile and refused to get your sperm count checked? Conversations like that usually don't happen out of the blue. I don't understand this either. NTA. Your mother and your sister are assholes for not speaking up and telling Leah that talking about her uncle that way is unacceptable. Even if Leah was 100% right, she is not entitled to his money and continued support. If you repeatedly talk shit about someone behind their back, someone who is being kind enough to support you financially when they don't need to, and they find out about it, don't expect that financial support to continue. You made the choice to badmouth them behind their back. Don't cry when that choice has consequences. I think you should consider therapy, love. Yay, he's definitely fragile, that's okay, and needs some support. Sure, her words were shitty, but he's the asshole for dangling the tuition over their heads. NTA. While this very much sounds like a teenager arrogantly running their mouth about something they don't understand as well as they think they do, and there's a chance Leah is probably going to look back on this conversation and seriously regret it when she's older, you're well within rights to be hurt and angry at what Leah said. And it's fair for Leah to learn the lesson that when you speak about people with contempt, you aren't entitled to their generosity. What I think is most telling here is that your mom and sister have closed ranks to make excuses for Leah, or to make her apologize, which still isn't a real apology coming from Leah herself. If your niece comes to you with her own sincere apology and an acknowledgement that she really fucked up, I think it would be good if you can hear her out. But right now it seems like everyone just wants to rug sweep, and you're right to resist that. That's why I'm saying NTA. Mom and sister closing ranks behind the niece? I told you so, they all talked about this multiple times already behind his back. Info. Did you get tested during the 5 years of infertility? NTA. If she's a child, why did they talk about something like that with her? Thinking face it really makes you think, doesn't it? If she's 16 and was spouting nonsense, why did she know immediately that she was in the wrong when you told them about it? She suddenly stopped eating and became silent. She knew how wrong what she said was and she only feels guilty about being caught. NTA. She's 16 not 6. Words have meaning and what you say has consequences. It's better she learns that now. And you aren't required to fund the education of someone thoughtless and hurtful with their words. If I was you, I'd take a step back and focus on yourself and what makes you happy. Don't worry about the selfish family members you leave behind. They'll still be waiting near you with their hands out if you decide to come back. Well, here's a funny thing. Just because your ex ended up getting pregnant by her new partner, that doesn't necessarily mean you are infertile. It sometimes happens that two otherwise fertile people are unable to conceive together. You don't mention having had all of those tests, but if you don't have all that information, Leah certainly doesn't. I would tell her to keep those grades up. Maybe she can get a scholarship, but your funds belong to you. NTA. I'll go with NTA, since she's a kid who knows nothing. Your sister could have correct her daughter's statement in that moment and, unless you're leaving something out, this means that your sister and probably your mom think the same and this is a kind of conversation that they had before you finding out. Also, people are saying that because of her age you can make her accountable for her comments, but she is mature enough to bring the concept of toxic masculinity to end. If your niece for 1 second believed that she hurt you or said something wrong, she would have apologized after you told them what you heard. But your sister is offering to make her apologize because you no longer are willing to pay for her school. NTA. Your reproduction and relationship is none of their business. It sounds like you made the college fund to compensate for not having children, but she is not obligated to that money. I hope your family gets their proverbial shit together. Holy shish. That was completely heartless and tone deaf, even if said in confidence. NTA. You had no obligations to her to begin with and 16 is old enough to know better. Leah is the here. You have been so good to your family and these comments are way below the belt. Leah needs to issue an apology and stop hiding behind her mom. But I don't blame you for needing space. I'm so sorry, for everything. I know the news of the pregnancy coupled with these harsh comments hurt more than I can ever fathom. The kid was cruel. Divorce is pretty devastating. Infertility is worse. The adults in the room should have scolded the kid. NTA. It's your money, you can do what you like with it. Your sister should have apologized instantly but she didn't. Now the only reason she is trying to is because money is involved. I bet she wouldn't care about what her daughter said if it didn't affect her financially. This is a tough but I will side with this opinion. NTA. If your sister had immediately tried to stop Leah, which it sounds like they've discussed this before, and corrected her immediately, I think there is grounds to say it's just a dumb kid comment, although she is 16. There is no responsibility for you to have to pay for her college, and what was said was really crossing a line and was about something that had a huge impact on your life. Seems like your sister and Leah are only upset about it now that it hits them financially.